Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. We've got a few Switch games to give away. Just let us know in the comments what you've been playing and we'll announce the winner in next week's episode. To absolutely no one's surprise, we've managed to get another 10% off for this month. So if you're going to buy any of these games, then you might as well save 10% using code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg. I am quite pleased with this week's list. Last week's was a bit naff because I was away on holiday, so I had to kind of make the list really early. So you have to pick games that are on sale for a very long time and you end up missing some of the best ones. I'm very confident about this one. I think there's some great games on here and there's definitely a hidden gem at the end that I've been playing recently that I've heard some of you mention before, but I think most of you might be kind of unaware of its presence. And we'll finish with a couple of games you should avoid because they're absolute garbage and I'll try and give you some alternatives. So with all of that said, what is on sale? Well, let's find out. First up, we've got the excellent Cris Tales. This is a JRPG that features an interesting mechanic that essentially lets you see into the future as well as the past. The screen splits into 3 and side quests that you can complete will basically affect the future of towns. I really enjoyed this. It did have random battles which I'm not a huge fan of, but I thought the art style as well as the story itself were really good features. To get around the overworld map, you've got this airship and the combat also adopts some of that past, present and future mechanic. So you can apply poison in the past and then the enemy will be completely wrecked in the future and then they'll be much weaker. It's a really cool idea. I thought it was a good cast of characters and a fun game, and it has a download size of 3.4 gigs. There's also a physical of this one available. Divinity Original Sin 2 is one of the best RPG games ever made. We have a full review of this one, but you only have a few hours, so if you want to buy this one, you've got to pick it up on Sunday the 14th of August if you're in the UK, and in the US I believe your sale goes on until the 15th. It's currently half price down to £22.49, and while that might sound like a lot of money, if you're a fan of this genre, this is as good as it gets. There's infinite freedom in terms of how you approach any situation, and the story is excellent. You're looking at easily 100 hours of gameplay minimum, and there's some online functionality here as well. Unlike other versions, it doesn't have split screen though, but I'm sure I'd heard rumours they were going to add it, but yeah, maybe not. I think performance would just chug down. It's 11.8 gigabytes, and if you want it, snap it up quick. I'm sure you're already aware, but Adventure Pals was created by the same people that just released Cult of the Lamb. This is one of my favourite indie games on Switch, and it's 90% off for the next about day and a half, 2 days. That is an absolute steal. It's easily the deal of the week. It could be a game that's perfect for kids. My kids have played it and enjoyed it, but it's just as good for adults. It also has 2-player local co-op. It's got a reasonable small download size of 1.4 gigs. And although it looks so cutesy, there's a nice challenging game in here that combines some platforming, has this little overworld area that you move around to go between your different levels. There's a bit of RPG bits and bobs thrown in for good measure as well, and it's got a cool little story. Definitely add this. For £1, this is like essential. In the absence of Fallout New Vegas on Switch, The Outer Worlds is the way to go. I know it's not for everyone, but if you're a Fallout fan, then it's very likely that you'll enjoy this. The biggest issue on the Switch was the performance. It just was terrible at launch. Now it's, I'd say, mediocre, but it's, you know, the game is still fun enough for me. I enjoy playing it in handheld. It has gyro aiming. There's tons of DLCs that have been released, and those are also on sale at the moment. So, I mean, you can pick up either Peril on Gorgon or Murder on Eridanus. And yeah, I had a good time with them. I thought Peril on Gorgon was potentially a little bit better for my tastes, but you can also just get the expansion pass for 15 quid. So yeah, if you're after a bit of old school Fallout style action, although it doesn't have VATs, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into with The Outer Worlds. 17.2 gigabytes. Although the How Long to Beat says it's 13 hours, that's absolute nonsense. You're looking at 50 hours to 100 easily. And that sale goes on until August the 24th. It's nice to finally get to talk about Axiom Verge 2, because after the first game, which everyone loved, we had really high hopes from Thomas Happ for the sequel, and I've got to be honest, it's not as good. It doesn't live up to the hype. It just doesn't. The first game was amazing. This felt a bit disjointed in places. Now, with that said, it's still a really enjoyable Metroidvania. It's just one of those where you go in with such high expectations, you end up a bit disappointed. There were also some serious bugs at launch that have been patched out. Now, I know it might sound like, why on earth would I buy that? It's still easily a 70s, 80% type game in terms of its experience. It just doesn't hit the peaks of the first. It's only 432 megabytes. You're looking at about 12 to 15 hours to finish it, and I enjoyed it. I just I hope with the third game that he really kind of gets back to his form, I guess, to what made the first one so great. Titan Quest is next up at 70% off. I must admit I found it quite funny that we saw some brand new DLC content for this. You've got the Ragnarok as well as Atlantis updates, and they're also 65% off, so you could get the whole lot for about 20 quid. Now, Titan Quest is a brilliant single or co-op adventure that's essentially a bit like old school Diablo. There's tons of side quests in here, tons of quest lines. It's a game that I first bought an entire PC to play, and I've actually still got the physical in my loft, but which also has some online functionality that I never got to try out. That is in the Switch version. You can do 1 to 6 player online. I don't know if that's an arena or what, but in terms of gameplay length, you're going to want to do side quests in this style game, so you could easily push it to 35 to 50 hours easily. And again, it's another one where there's a physical that can usually be had for quite cheap. Then we've got the delightful Red Dwarf-like Void Bastards, which also has the Void Bastards Deluxe Edition, which is only £11.19, but the base game's £9.99, and it's a brilliant take on a roguelite. You go through space on your ship, you can choose different paths, you board other alien vessels, and essentially you're gathering different supplies. It's first-person combat, and it really does have the humour, in my opinion, of something like Red Dwarf. Like all the characters that you're going against, the enemies are kind of bad-mouthing you. They're like, oh, I bet he's hiding in a closet, and add in a few expletives, and you kind of have a good idea of how this one plays out. Around about 13 to 15 hours, there's a good amount of content, but like I say, you can just get it, including the DLC, for £11.19. Excellent game, well worth it, something a bit different, and that sale goes on until August the 25th. There is also a physical of this one. I think it was my good friend Lee Wynn who just finished Bioshock Infinite. I'm pretty sure it was, but it's incredible. It really is a great game. It takes everything up into the clouds, essentially. There's a city up there, and you play as private investigator Booker DeWitt. He's trying to rescue Elizabeth, and it has such a great soundtrack. Like, it starts out and you're basically in a cult, and the reflections on the water, like, it looks amazing on Switch. But they're singing this hymn. I think is it like Going Down in the River to Pray? Is it that one? I can't remember, but it's just, the atmosphere is on point. The real problem with all of the Bioshock games on Switch is that they don't have gyro controls, so it's just a pain in the bum, really. I know someone will say, do I need to have played the first and second games to play this? Well, you don't, but you should, and they're also on sale at 60% off, so you might as well. Alternatives and a completely different style would be the Borderlands games. Real fan of those as well. They're also on sale, and that's until August the 24th. Then we've got Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, old school RPGs, and massive open worlds, you're going to really enjoy this. It's action RPG based combat. It's very Tolkien-esque in its presentation, and it does have some clunkier, more dated aspects, but it is brilliant. After Dragon's Dogma came out, a lot of us were hoping we'd get this, and we did. And I'll be honest, I think the sales from Dragon's Dogma and this have probably gone towards the fact that we're going to see sequels for Dragon's Dogma, and I'm well happy with that. You could easily push this to 50 to 100 hours in terms of content, side questing, etc. And again, it's another that just has a physical that you can find for so cheap. If you're a physical collector, you might as well go that way. It's a 12.3 gigabyte download and goes on until August the 18th. Which takes us to Hidden Gem territory, and we have Unsighted. I first played this right at launch when it came out, in fact before launch, because I was planning to review it, but something else popped up. And I played through and I thought, oh, this is okay. It had a really strange section at the start where you kind of getting chased by this creature, and I thought, oh, this is weird. So I left it for a while, came back to it, played a big chunk and was like, my goodness, this is incredible. There have been a few games I've played where that's happened, but you play here as Alma, who is an automaton, and she awakens in a world in ruin after the war with the humans. There's quite a bit of freedom in terms of your traversal of the world, and there's lots of secrets, hidden items, weapons, etc. to find. You can choose to have weapons in single or dual wield. There are shurikens, shotguns, and the combat is all about timing and skill. There's crafting and upgrading here, but also, I don't know if this was here originally, but there's a co-op mode, as well as a boss rush and a dungeon raid. And yeah, you can actually bring a friend for the entire game in co-op, which is just awesome. Brilliant game. Right about, at my speed, 15 hours. At your speed, maybe 10. And if you're a completionist, maybe 20. You're looking at 2.4 gigabyte download. And that sale goes on until August the 25th. Absolute hidden gem. Great game. Well worth picking up.
Save them before it's...
On to the games from last week's sale that are still on sale. We've got Cozy Grove, a brilliant Animal Crossing-like title that's seen a number of updates since it launched. Really great art style, thoroughly relaxing, and if you're a fan of Animal Crossing, you're going to enjoy this one a lot. Green Hell is also still on sale, still brutally difficult, and you can still die from walking in water and getting sucked to death by leeches. Super Epic, the Metroidvania with the llama, is still available until the 24th, as is Heaven Dust 2, the survival horror Resident Evil style adventure with the top-down perspective. Really good game. And last week's hidden gem, Candleman, which uses its light and dark based mechanics for the puzzling. First up then on the games you should avoid, well, lest we forget, Ark Survival Evolved was released in 2018 in an appalling state, and it's just as bad now as the day it was released. But I did hear a rumour on the grapevine saying that it was going to get a re-release and that the developers basically had massively improved it. So keep your eye on Ark, just for the fact that, yeah, it might be coming out again in a decent state. It's not a bad game. As far as alternatives go, well, there aren't many dinosaur games, but there has been one recently released. But you'll have to keep your eyes on the channel next week, because we might take a cheeky little look at that one. Another game probably worth avoiding really is Ark of the Alchemist. It went on these crazy sales and everyone was like, yeah, look at that, it's like a full RPG for a couple of quid. But it's just not great. The storyline's meh, the visuals are and you know, in a world where games like Xenoblade 3 exist, I know they're not in the same price category, but just pay the extra and go and do a proper RPG. And on that note, Xenoblade 3, I am absolutely loving it. I think it might be my top 1 or 2 games of all time. It's incredible. How many RPGs you play where you're just bored and you're like, oh, come on, just hurry up. For me, this hits the nail on the head on so many areas, things like the combat. But I won't go into it. You'll have to watch our interesting games video coming up in the next week, where I will go into it a bit more because, yeah, wow, incredible game. And that is it for this week. Thanks so much to all of you for watching. Please do use our code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg and save 10% on any of these games. Just buying your eShop credit on there, and it gives us a tiny kickback, which is what keeps the channel going. So yeah, thanks to all of you in the patrons as well. If you want to join them, all the links are in the description, and the Discord is completely free. You can go and join a community of SwitchUp people who actually play games together and chat, and there's minimal level of weebness, although it is in there. I have been watching. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!